Welcome to Pentecost. You knew it was Pentecost, did you not? If you look inside your bulletin, at the top of the inside page, right under the wings, it says 11 a.m. Sunday service, Whitsunday. You know that word, don't you? Whitsunday. That's Pentecost in English. England English. Church of England Methodists use that word. It's pretty common instead of Pentecost. Do you remember what Pentecost was? Where do you first hear about Pentecost? Old Testament. Old Testament. Oh, but that's in the New Testament. That has to do with Jesus and the Holy Spirit. He made it so. But originally, Pentecost is the Greek name for the Jewish festival of weeks, which was a festival of harvest, first fruits of the grain, the harvest of the grain. And so you find it in Leviticus chapter 23, you find it in Deuteronomy chapter 16. You need to go look those up when you go home. I know those are two of your favorite books, Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Yeah. But on this, it's the occasion of that feast. But let's see what happens. Chris, would you start it? That's a pretty good depiction, I think. First off, you saw a couple of disciples meeting out in the crowd, and they were speaking about the danger to them. The officials, the church officials, the Jewish officials, religious officials, were after them. They weren't safe. They were not pleased with this thing called the way, and would strike it out. They gathered in that upper room. We keep coming back to the upper room, don't we? Charles Fillmore, he uses a nice expression, a high state of consciousness. Upper room. How do you get there? It's a process of prayer and meditation, yes? So, they gathered together, and you heard them speaking the Lord's Prayer. Well, how appropriate. Very appropriate. And then, all of a sudden, there's this great wind. Everybody seemed to be really upset by what was going on in this great wind. And then, of course, in the Bible description, there are tongues of flame that appear above their heads or out from their heads. Light. It's light. They begin to see the light, radiate the light, experience enlightenment. And the next thing, they're speaking. Did you hear them speaking in strange languages? The text says speaking in tongues. George Lamsa explained that. He said that meant that the people who were foreigners, you saw people outside, and they could hear them, yes? You could tell that they could hear them. You heard the voice coming outside to the crowds. They understood what they were saying in their own language. From Galileans who didn't know their language. That's a pretty interesting detail of the story. Have you ever been in a church where they speak in tongues? Yeah? I remember one time I heard one person do that, and I thought they were barking. But I also remember another time, it was in church for which I was playing organ, and there was a woman who was visiting the church from a different denomination. And during the sermon, she started speaking. And the minister stopped talking. And he listened. And then he pointed out to the congregation a couple of words she spoke in Aramaic, which was Jesus' language. And he translated those into English. They spoke in tongues. They spoke so people could understand. And then you saw them laughing. One of the descriptions, biblical descriptions, is they appeared as if they were drunk. They looked like it had been a happy party. Filled with the Spirit. Well, you know what they call drink is spirits, right? Filled with the spirits, happy. They were happy. They were filled with the joy of God's presence. It says they were all together in one place, and as Charles Fillmore would say, that was a high state of consciousness. They were in prayer and meditation, which elevates them to be open and receptive to God mind, to divine ideas, to not only the intellectual concept of, gee, I'm a child of God, but to the reality, I am a child of God. I know that I am a child of God. I know that God lives and moves and has its being in me. I am the Christ. That's a lot different than I have this intellectual concept. You know, I can say I am the Christ. I'm not sure what that feels like yet. This is the deep knowing that Spirit of God is implanted in every one of us. All the faculties are there. The disciples are all there. All the faculties that we have, spiritual faculties of mind, gathered together, and they're concentrated, all in one place. Have you any idea the power of concentration? It's pretty remarkable. One of the tools I had when I was in ministerial training was walking in the woods. After the morning of classes, I'd have lunch at the end, and I might take a quick, you know the expression, to stretch out for a moment in my little cottage room, and then I would go for a walk in the woods. I walked all over Unity acreage out there. I mean, I think to another county. I saw all kinds of things that I had no idea was there. I saw the old water treatment plant back in the woods that was abandoned, and came up to railroad tracks and walked along railroad tracks way back in towards the Little Blue River, way out in the woods. But during that time, I would relax, and I would be open and receptive. And usually I had some assignment to work on or project, and I would begin to concentrate on that as I'm doing the walking. And ideas would come. And darn good ones at that. So when I got back to my room and when I started working on something, it was coming together. It was coming together better than I could have made it come together. So there's something wonderful about doing the prayer work and the meditation. Do you think that they would have come together in that upper room and had lunch, talked and laughed and had a good time, do you think that the descent of the Holy Spirit would have happened then? No. It is because they concentrated their energies, concentrated their minds, all of them, and joining in. I like the fact that they used the Lord's Prayer. All one prayer together, one that they were familiar with, that Jesus had taught them. And it brought them all into one mind. Made them open, receptive, and obviously responsive to the coming of the Holy Spirit. Early on, when will the Holy Spirit come? It'll come when it comes. But it won't come until you're open, receptive, and responsive to it. Oh. In all these weeks we've talked about resurrection. Do you think it's going to come if you're not open, receptive, and responsive? And that's what the prayer and meditation does, is put you in that place, put you in that state of mind or consciousness. And when the Holy Spirit zaps you, you know you're zapped. You're changed. Charles Fillmore said that what happens to each one of us when we experience that descent of the Holy Spirit is confidence. And certainly after this event, they had confidence because they went out into the world and they did what Jesus had told them. Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. And they did. Something else, another effect of it. Do you remember after the Last Supper? You were there, surely. Peter denied he knew Jesus. And totally denied knowing Jesus 3 times, right? He was afraid. Afraid to let anybody know that he was part of the crowd. After the Holy Spirit, there's no fear. Fear goes because there's no room in a God-centered consciousness illuminated by the very Spirit of God within. Can you see that? But with that comes authority. And they went out and they had no fear to do what was necessary. Stephen, who we see in the marketplace there to start with, you remember what happened to him later. He got stoned. Not like in the 60s. So he was the first Christian martyr. But he did the work without fear. If I thought I was going to get stoned, Lord, today I need to be I think I need to go to Osawatomie. Someplace far away from here. Yeah, we'd run, we'd avoid it because of fear. Remember, Charles Fillmore said, fear is faith in something other than God. Faith in something negative. Something that is not God. So, a wonderful result when you pray, meditate, and become open, receptive, and responsive. Now, could Jesus do this for these guys? Could he make them open, receptive, responsive? No. We can't do it for each other. No matter how much we want. Those of you who have children, there's probably not anything you wouldn't do for your children that was good for them, right? You can't do this for them. They can't do it for you. It is a choice each one of us makes, because we're working with our own consciousnesses, our own minds, our own beliefs and attitudes. Do you think just anybody coming along can change your attitude about what's detergent to buy? How many centuries have there been wars and fights between the various religious denominations on communion? Do we do it? When do we do it? How often do we do it? How do we do it? Do you get bread and wine? Do you get just wine? Do you get just bread? Do you get both? Who can take it? They've fought over all kinds of things. They're still fighting. Human beings can't make other human beings really do anything. We've tried, even politicians try to legislate morality. How successful do you think that is? You pass a law against something, but that doesn't make people not do it. Anybody here ever speed? You know, there's a law against that. But we still do it. That's probably just one of 2 or 3 that we still do, right? Yeah. It is for us to present ourselves, to be willing to stand forth in the presence of that divine spirit we call God, that radiant creator, and say, "Here I am, Lord. Use me. Work through me. Let your love flow through me. Your light illuminate me, that I may in turn illuminate the world." This is the route to resurrection. And this is what this journey of the points of light is all about. This festival of Pentecost is called the birthday, the birth of the church. Well, when it happens in you, to you, and through you, it is the birth of the church of Christ in the midst of you. You are one and indivisible from that church of Christ. Charles Fillmore stated in one of his talks that there's a religious service going on continually in the depths of our being. The challenge is, for most of us, is that we're not aware of it. Well, how can you be aware of something so beautiful and so sacred when you're all caught up in, oh, ain't it awful? Have you seen the news? Have you seen the prices in the supermarket? Have you heard what Sally down the street just experienced in the autumn? It's awful hard when you're all filled with the nasties of human experience to realize there's a holy service going on in the depth of your being. You could be there. You could participate. But the first thing is be still and know. Be still and know that you are an expression of God. That Christ lives and moves and has its being in you. That was Jesus' secret. You heard it here. You may not have heard it here first, but hopefully you heard it here last. Because maybe it's the last time we need to be reminded. It's here now. I liked, I liked him so much I can't think of his name. Sig Paulson. He played with words and phrases, and I borrowed one of his. You can't start any sooner. No reason to wait any longer. Now is the accepted time. Now is the time to do this. Now is the time to be this. Now is the time to do what maybe you've been thinking, oh, one of these days I'll start meditating. One of these days I'll really put this stuff to use. One of these days I'll really focus on my awareness of the presence of God. Well, now's the time. So that you are open, receptive, and responsive to that whole Spirit of God that is seeking to move in you and through you to change you into the wonderful being you were created as. To strip off all that paint we've been applying over the years, slapping it on from the outside. You know, it's like having a dead rose bush. My grandmother did things like this. She would have a live plant in the kitchen, and it would start to be sickly, and it wouldn't have any blooms. And the next thing you know, I'd see a flower on it. If I went close, it was a plastic flower. Yeah, tying a plastic rose on a dead rose bush. She could do that. But that's not what we're about. We're about living from the roots, bringing the rose out of the roots from the depth of our being.